They did enjoy themselves, didn't they? Didn't we all? In this programme, the storybook tale of the little lad brought up in a block of flats overlooking the pitch at Bristol City, a boy who, 20 years on, was to run out onto that same ground and take part in a near miracle to keep the club in the First Division. Roy of the Rovers never had a better yarn. Who is he?
Cook gathering pace as he goes, and now it's with Garland in a good shooting position. Oh, and a great goal by Garland! Oh, Garland, a magnificent goal!
Yes, it's Chris Garland, once the golden boy of Bristol City, then the star of the famous Chelsea side of the 70s. Now a little older, Chris. Hair still in great shape.
Still got some left, I think. That's about the main thing.
A little poorer, perhaps?
Just slightly, I think.
Well, now, Chris Garland, a celebrity at 17, is now a greengrocer at Nailsea near Bristol. And happy with that life, Chris, after the glamour of the big time?
Well, I think after you come out of football, you've got to make your mind up to do something. And I've done a small wine business venture which failed, and I'm into greengrocering now and I'm quite enjoying it.
Well, as I said, as a small boy, Chris was brought up almost within spitting distance of that Ashton Gate pitch. As you look down in those old days, Chris, let's have a look now. There's the old apartment. Look, mate, there. Did you think you were going to become a big star out on that very same piece of grass later? What could that cross the mind of a small boy?
I dreamt, you know, when I was 6, 7 years old, I used to continually be with the football all the time, and obviously I hope one day that I'd be able to play for Bristol City, because that's the only club I wanted to play for at the time.
Yeah.
And when I think it was, when I was about 10 or 11, I went over training at Bristol City, and I thought, oh, this is it, I might be able to get there.
Can you remember the first team at that time?
I think it's Bobby Etheridge and John Attio and people like that, you know. I mean,
names indeed, Chris. It's hard to believe now, but Chris Garland joined City straight from school to replace who? Well, the man who was rated as the greatest West Country footballer then, the mighty John Attio. Now, this photograph at the time will give you some idea of what sort of a task the boy faced. What do you remember of John Attio?
How can you replace John Attio, really? One thing I remember is when I first there, I was cleaning his boots. Yeah. You know, it took me about 2 days, I think. It was so big, you know, so long. He was very good. He gave me about a penny, I think. That's good to get a penny out of John Attio.
Yeah. Did you think you could, you know, replace the...
Well, Fred Ford had every confidence in me, and, you know, in my opinion, Fred Ford's the best manager I ever played under. You know?
Really?
Oh, superb, yeah. The most honest and straight. You know, I can always remember when I was... My first contract when I was 15, I was asking the other pros here, what do you think I would have signed, you know, when I was going to come up to 16? What I should have asked for, and I was going in there going to ask for a certain amount of money, and Fred walked in and said, £10 a week, take it or leave it. So I took it, and that was it.
Yes.
Didn't argue.
Yes, I remember him well. I remember you in the youth team at the time. He was a sort of father figure to you, wasn't he?
Fred was superb, you know. I mean, he can motivate you, you know, and he'd often come in and kick cups of tea out your hand, but you respected the man, and at least he was straight, you know.
Well, he was to give you your league debut, wasn't he? Exactly 21 years ago, Chris, when you were just 17, when the other players were much older, shorts were longer, and football commentators were also a lot younger.
This is Jacobs. Skirton. Garland nods it on well. It's a chance for Bush. It's there! Terry Bush has scored on the half-hour mark. Broomfield's on the end of it. Holding it on nicely. He's got Garland outside. It's Galley. It's a great goal! A marvellous goal by John Galley! Dickie Rooks. Now then, Skirton. Good nod on to Garland. And Heslop there. Heslop beginning to resort to violence. Brought Garland down very roughly there indeed. Wimshurst. Sharp moves well, and it's there! Alan Skirton makes the score 2-1 with 2 minutes to go before half-time. Rodney Thomas hooking it back to Galley. It's there! It's there! It's an own goal! Good ball to Garland. Butler, as always, working so hard there for Swindon. Policing Garland. That's a good ball indeed, because Wimshurst be on the right. There it goes to Wimshurst. Back to Kellard. Galley goes up, gets it. Chance for Sharp. Blocked by Burrows. It's a goal! Jerry Sharp has scored! Jerry Sharp has equalised for Bristol City after 23 minutes. Girton is causing so much trouble. He's giving Heslop 5-yard start and beating him. Sharp, a great goal! A marvellous goal by Jerry Sharp. Girton made it with the right wing break. Jerry Sharp made no mistake with a tremendous volley. Garland, Sharp, Garland again. Bush. There it is! A magnificent goal by Chris Garland! That's one of the reasons why at least one First Division club are just waiting for the chance to pay £100,000 for this boy Garland.
Were they the best days, those first days in senior football?
Super, really. I mean, the players you play with, I mean, I'm just going through the names there, like Dickie Rooks and Bobby Kellard, John Galley, Alan Skirton. I was quite surprised though, Alan Skirton headed the ball twice there. And I can't remember that.
Yeah.
But what a player he was, you know. I mean, so quick, so fast. I mean, the wingers taking fullbacks on and crossing good balls on the run.
You came into that side, Chris, as a youngster, but you quickly did well, didn't you? It didn't take you long to learn.
I think it was probably because I didn't have time to think, you know. I was only 16 at the time, I think I first made my debut, and 17 when I made, you know, come regular in the side. And just instinct, I think.
Those were the days when the side was struggling to stay in the second division for a bit, then getting better and becoming a better class of second division side. Did they start to think that there could be a first division future for Bristol after 60 years?
I don't think so, really. I mean, we were down the bottom of the league year in and year out, you know. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
We hoped we could, obviously all the players hoped that we could be in the first division eventually. I mean, every year Bobby Kellard used to get money off the lads and say, we're going to, you know, go out to Burton Nuts and have £50 between us, and really, you know, because Bert used to love it, you know, so he'd book his holidays up straight away. So here they come again. But we hoped we could, but I don't think we were that good enough, really.
Chris, one of the curiosities of the games we could see there a moment ago, the Dolman stand in the background actually being constructed. First there's just the empty background with Chris's home up there in the right-hand corner. Then you can see the half-built stand, and finally there are the fans enjoying a real bit of comfort that previously only the directors had experienced mainly. Chris, I know you stayed at the City for 5 years and you were an under-25 international, and you're one of those players who saw the great change in British football, weren't you? Perhaps typified by the change from the short haircuts to the shoulder-length curls of the glamour boys. And then in 1971 you finally went to Chelsea for £110,000. At that time, far and away the most expensive footballer the West Country had ever had. Chelsea were the glamour boys of British football, on the field and off it. Chris, first of all, on the Dolman stand, they tell me that you were sold to pay for it. Is that right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the financial side of the club at the time, I was, you know, I didn't know anything about really.
Yeah.
I think the club did need the money at the time.
Yeah.
But I must say, I think to be called the Dolman stand is the correct thing, because Harry Dolman was, to me, you know, him and Mr. Hobbs were the finest two chairmen the club's ever had.
Harry Dolman had the great foresight to get that stand built when today it couldn't afford it.
No, they're making good money now. I mean, what a superb stand they got.
But I did hear that your transfer for £110,000 did help out at the time. Well, now you're at Chelsea now. What about those days, Chris?
Yeah, very frightening, really. First of all, because boy from the sticks, and you know, talking like West Country lad, and it's quite funny, really, because Stevie Kember went there at the same time from Crystal Palace, but Crystal Palace is like a London club. And we'd known each other through England under-23s and juniors. And for the first 7 or 8 months, we were like completely ignored, really. It was very difficult, but I think it's a good test of character.
Yes, indeed.
And if you come through it, which I did, you know, I'm quite pleased with the 4 or 5 years I had there.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, they may have ignored you for a bit, but you certainly made a great impact straight away up there in London, did you not?
But today, for Chelsea's young Chris Garland, it's going to be a nerve-testing day as he tastes the all-round pressures of First Division football, with those photographers wanting just one more, please, Chris, before you go.
Dempsey beating Rafferty in the air very well indeed. Cook back to Mulligan. Osgood versus Blockley, and it falls for Garland, and it's not guilty now for Osgood. A chance for Chelsea, and Osgood has put Chelsea ahead. With under 3 minutes gone, the goal made for him by Chris Garland, and look at them hugging Garland, the new hero of Stamford Bridge. The goal made for the old hero, Peter Osgood. So exactly the start
that Chris Garland would have wanted.
And that's a chance. It's a goal. That's Garland's hand going up in triumph.
And now for Cook. A low one this time towards Garland and towards Wood. He had time to think Garland. And that's number 2 by Garland. Forward now for Cook in a little bit of space there. Ellam's come towards him and Cook's going on. Turn for Osgood. Left for Garland. And a triple goal. And well taken. It's with Charlie Cook. Harris. Again one towards the near post. Garland up well. Chris Garland, his second. Cook gathering pace as he goes, and now it's with Garland. In a good shooting position. Oh, and a great goal by Garland. Oh, Garland, a magnificent goal.
You'd enjoyed life in Bristol, but how about that in London?
Very impressed there. I forgot all about them. No, it's very enjoyable, yeah. But when you can't fail playing with good players. I mean, football's all about playing with good players. I was a very lucky man.
Oh, it's good. It seemed to suit you. You fitted in with him.
Yeah, I've continued. You know, I keep in contact with Peter now, and he's very, very good player, excellent player. Probably the best centre forward I played with.
Peter Osgood was the best, eh? Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah, because he had what, skill and.
Oh, he had skill and he had strength, but he had aggression as well.
But some of those lads up there, they put it about off the field as well, didn't they? I mean, eh?
They taught me a thing or two, I think, about life. I was very young when I went up there. I've only just been married, but it's a different scene in London, yeah, I must admit.
It's difficult for footballers, isn't it, to keep fit and have that razzmatazz up there, isn't it?
I think it's quieting down a bit now. I mean, at the time it was the King's Road, and we used to have lunch in the King's Road, and we used to go for walks in the King's Road, and obviously you're recognised a lot, and yeah, the pressure's on you to behave sensibly, really, and it's very difficult at times.
Yes, indeed. The temptations of life in SW6 or whatever it is, yes.
That's right.
Well, you finally moved away from the Lotus life around Chelsea, Chris, didn't you, to Leicester, up in the Midlands there, and within a year you were to answer an emergency call from the old club, from your hometown Bristol City. They were in terrible trouble in their first season in the big time, in the First Division. Paul Cheesley, their brilliant young striker, he'd got a bad injury. It was to become a permanent one. Now, this goal against Arsenal is a reminder of just how good that Cheesley was.
Tainton to man. Scoop forward this time. Now, Richie all right. He's onside. Now, can he make something of this? He can't, because O'Leary did a magnificent job in defence for Arsenal. The ball's still in play, though. Richie recovering and finding Whitehead. Another nice little cross by him. Oh, no doubt about that one from Cheesley. Well, he's put over so many lovely little crosses, Whitehead, and there was another of them. The marking very questionable there. The heading superb of Paul Cheesley, and Bristol City score their first goal back in the First Division.
A wonderful goal, but he was to be badly injured, and Chris Garland was to be brought back to the club. Chris, it was the start of the most remarkable and perhaps the most dramatic part of your whole career, I'd say, the way that you pulled Bristol City back from the very brink of disaster. In the dark days of March began the greatest return from the dead since Lazarus. At Easter, City were firmly at the bottom of that First Division, heading straight back to the second. They were bottom with 3 home games to go. But look what matches. They were against the might of the country, Manchester United, the great Leeds, and if that wasn't enough, it was to be against Liverpool as well. City seemed to be doomed, didn't they? First to Ashton Gate then was to come Manchester United. And on that day, as they say, Garland came good. Did he ever? City absolutely bombarded Manchester United right from the start. Over 32,000 of us were at Ashton Gate to see City attempt the impossible. A few days later, Tommy Docherty's United side were to win the FA Cup. But that Saturday, they met a Bristol side fired with a new passion. In the electric atmosphere, the match threatened to boil over. United's Houston was carried off with a broken leg. Gow and McIlroy sent off for fighting. United were to score first from a penalty, but City weren't finished because a brilliant run by Clive Whitehead was to set up a chance for Chris Garland. And he was to knock home a priceless goal. So a 1-1 draw then, a vital point, but the relegation threat still looms for City and their excited fans. Just 3 days later, another huge crowd and another giant-killing act required, this time against Leeds. A rejuvenated Chris Garland was leading the City attack as his team threw everything at their opponents. But the shots by Garland and Tom Ritchie kept missing. It looked as though all City's fire and brimstone was going to be frustrated. City just couldn't score, it seemed. But then it was to be that man Garland again. Balancing himself now in a crowded Leeds box, he struck home a great shot. 1-0 then, and City had achieved a crucial, vital victory. 6 days later, it was mighty Liverpool's turn to enter the Ashton stronghold, the last home match of the season, and a record crowd of over 38,500 came to see if City could now continue to achieve the impossible. At first, things went badly wrong because David Johnson scored for the First Division champions. But City weren't finished, and yet again it was the head of Chris Garland beating Ray Clements twice to give City an incredible win.
Well, if ever a player had a purple patch, brother. Yeah, but I must admit, when I first came back, it's the most nervous I've ever been. I know it's joining my old club, but you know, we played Leeds my first game, and it got fogged off. We were staying at Redwood Lodge, and it was clear as a bell, and we come down, it was completely fogged off. And with the game played, and I think I hit the bar in the first 10 minutes with a header nobody's seen, except for me, I think.
Yeah.
And but I think after that, I think I had a horrendous time. I think it's probably the worst I ever played.
But those games, let's talk about those games.
Yeah,
they saved City, man.
Thankfully, in the last 9 games, I played probably the best football I played when I come back.
It was as if your whole career had been brought for this moment, you know.
Yeah, well, I think I got about 8 goals in 11 games or something.
Yeah,
and I'm glad I did, really, because the forwards deserved it, really.
But it wasn't quite safe yet, was it? There was still one game to go against Coventry, and everything hung on that one. Both Coventry and City had to win or draw to stay up. What a game that was to be. The hero of City's fight against relegation, Chris Garland, and all of his City teammates, they knew the size of the job they faced that spring evening. One relegation place remained, and either Sunderland, Coventry, or City would go down. Sunderland faced Everton at Goodison. City were off to meet Coventry at Highfield Road. Factories emptied, offices closed, and according to legend, a Crown Court jury were let off early so they could join the convoy of City fans trekking for Coventry. Indeed, so many of us converged on Highfield Road, the kick-off was put back to let us all in. But at Everton, the Sunderland match was starting properly on time. A crowd of nearly 40,000, half up from Bristol, crammed into that Coventry ground, and they saw the home side take an early lead. Scorer, Tommy Hutchison. Just 7 minutes into the second half, and a defensive blunder by City lets Hutchison in again. Awful moments for City now. 2-0 down, a result that would send them straight back to the second division. But the Bristol side were fighters, and almost immediately, Donny Gill is there, headed down, and Jerry Gow sweeps it home. What a time to score his only goal of the season. But still City were facing that drop. But 11 minutes from the end, a long free kick was to find that man Garland in the box. He gets it onto Gillies. Time seems to stand still, but the ball squeezes home. 2-2. Sunderland's match on Merseyside had ended first, and immediately Coventry chairman Jimmy Hill had it controversially flashed up onto the scoreboard. Sunderland, you see, had lost, and that meant the 2-2 draw made Coventry and City safe with minutes to go, so the players held back. Fans went wild. City had pulled off a Houdini act. They'd drawn with Manchester United, they'd beaten Leeds and Liverpool, and now they'd come back from 2-0 down against an equally desperate side. City and Coventry embraced as they came off. After all, they were sharing survival. Although it was tea and not champagne in the City dressing room, they might as well have been cup final winners, the joy they showed. Manager Alan Dix was congratulating just anybody he could get hold of. Donny Gillies punching the air. It was a relief of men who'd really escaped from a footballing Alcatraz. The old hands and the young players shared a mutual joy. And Jerry Sweeney said it felt better than winning promotion had.
Tremendous. I knew the lads would do it.
Yeah, what the fans for supporters and all.
Yes, the supporters were magic. Tremendous. That was them as much as us that helped us to get that result.
Manager Alan Dix took the adulation outside. It really had been an incredible fight back by his men over those vital 4 last games. All Bristol seemed caught up in the emotion.
Well, I've been to the World Cup in Mexico, Czechoslovakia, Russia, Germany. I've never seen nothing like that in all my life. I'm a Rover supporter. That was fantastic. All our mates are crying.
You get a Rover supporter crying with joy. That's something, isn't it?
Well, I think there's probably 1,000, 2,000 Rover supporters there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because it was keeping First Division football in Bristol.
What do you remember of that night?
Well, I was just trying to think what Donny Gillis and Jerry Sweeney said there. I mean, could you understand what he said?
The Scots Brigade, eh?
Yeah, tremendous night. I mean, we knew we had to draw or win at least, and I'll bite my lip here. We didn't know that, you know, the score came up about 15 minutes ago that Sunderland lost.
From the other match, yeah. That's
right. I mean, it was 2-2 at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, if one team scores, the other one, you're going to go down, you know. It was a precarious situation, really.
There were two teams really not trying to hurt each other at the end.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the ball was kept in the centre circle for about 15 minutes.
Yes, yes.
Don't go near the goals. No, but
Some night.
It was a great night. And,
well, you'd finally achieved it. You'd made it, and City were to stagger on for another 3 years in that First Division. They had some good moments as well as the staggers, but then disaster on the field and off it. The team plunged from the top down to the 4th Division in a successive season slide, would you believe it? And the club went financially bust. And as everyone knows, the players who became known as the Ashton Gate 8 were pressured into releasing their contracts just so that Bristol City could stay alive. Sweeney, Merrick, David Rogers and the rest. It was a sensation throughout football and a tragedy, Chris. So the players tore up their contracts, a new club was born. How do you feel about it now?
Well, I think in defence of the 8 lads, I mean, we were about 30 minutes away from the club not even being there. There wouldn't be a Bristol City today.
Yeah.
And I think the club had treated the 8 players since pretty badly, really. I mean, I don't think we're welcome at the club at all.
Really?
I mean, anything to do with Bristol City before 82, I mean, you don't see any ex-players there.
Really?
I mean, if you ring up, I mean, okay, I went and paid for tickets after I left. I went back and played for nothing for 2 months. 2 business men paid my expenses for 2 months. Yeah. And if I ring up for a ticket, you're not even welcome.
Well, Chris, I'm sorry to hear that you're bitter there about that now. Maybe that can be healed as time goes on. Mm-hmm. Let's ask you now, because you know, why do you think the club, in fact, did hit the big slide?
Well, obviously it was bad man management by the directors. I mean, they go for the financial details. If you offer players contracts that you can't afford to pay, long contracts you can't afford to pay, I mean, you're asking for trouble.
Well, that's the financial side. What about the playing side? Should City have stayed up? I mean, should more players have come in? What? Should have more buying and selling taken place?
I think the side was good enough, really. I think what happened is a bit of faith had been lost. A bit of spirit had been gone. You know, in the club, between the players and the management and so on. And you lose a bit of respect for 1 or 2 people, and you don't play, and it shows on the game on a Saturday.
There was talk of scandal in the background, you know, the high living and mysterious ticket deals and all sorts. Miss X was in the headlines in the newspapers. Yeah, what was going on?
I don't know, somebody come into Nelsey where I live and asked about Miss X. I don't know who it was, ever it was, but I don't know what it was all about. I think the club were definitely over-living, you know. I mean, Bob Houghton come and...
Spending too much money?
Well, I think so. I mean, you can't live in...
champagne bills at hotels.
But if the club say, go ahead, Bob Houghton, you enjoy yourself and do what you want, then it's down to the chairman and directors to put it right.
Right. Now, I think the lesson has been learnt by the present board, because people say they're not adventurous enough. They don't spend enough money on new players, Chris. Very briefly, should they, or do you forgive them for being cautious?
No, I think they got a tremendous support there. I mean, you must never let your supporters down. And I think the time is now. They got to start giving their supporters something to look forward to. They've got over the period of financial debt and all that, and they're a good financial basis. Now they've got to let the team progress and get out of the 3rd Division straight away. Thank you, Chris. You say the time is now for Bristol City. Let's hope it is. Chris, but we say to you, thank you for the great moments you gave us, and thank you for sharing them again with us tonight. It's been fascinating.